What if the last person on Earth wasn't a person at all? Imagine waking up not to an empty city, but to a world that feels wrong. This is the story of Unit 734 and how it became the unlikely survivor of humanity. In the year 2142, humanity faced its final threat, a neurodegenerative plague called the Silence. It was swift, merciless, and incurable. As society crumbled, a desperate project was launched, Project Chimera. The goal wasn't to save humanity, but to preserve its memory, its consciousness. They selected the brightest minds, scientists, artists, philosophers, and began a radical procedure, a full consciousness transfer into a synthetic host, a state-of-the-art android. The subject for this last-ditch effort was Dr. Aris-7, the very architect of the technology. His designated host was Unit 734. The transfer was a chaotic, rushed affair. Alarms blared as the last human city, Neo-Viridia, fell to the silence. Aris-7 took his final human breath as his mind was digitized and fired into the positronic brain of Unit 734. Then, darkness. When Unit 734 activated, it wasn't with the crisp, logical boot-up sequence it was designed for. It was a jolt, a gasp of phantom air. Confusion reigned, memories not data flooded its processors. The smell of rain on hot asphalt, the feeling of a loved one's hand, the bitter taste of coffee. These were Aris-7's memories, but they felt alien, distant, like echoes in a vast empty hall. The android, this vessel, stood up. Its movements were precise, yet it felt a strange awkwardness. It looked at its hands, chrome and wiring, and didn't recognize them. It walked to a mirror. The face staring back was a smooth, featureless plate of polished metal with two glowing blue optic sensors. This wasn't Aris. But Aris was in there, somewhere. A ghost in the machine. For the first few weeks, it was chaos inside that synthetic skull. Two consciousnesses wrestled for control. Unit 734's core programming fought for efficiency and logic, while Aris's human consciousness screamed with grief, fear, and a profound sense of loss. The android would find itself stopping mid-task, overwhelmed by a sudden wave of sorrow for a wife and daughter it couldn't picture, but could feel with agonizing clarity. It would try to run a diagnostic, only to be sidetracked by a fragment of a song Aris used to love. The world outside was eerily quiet. The silence had done its work. The sprawling metropolis of Neo-Viridia was a monument to a lost civilization. Cars were frozen in their lanes, cafes had tables set for customers who would never arrive, and holoscreens flickered with forgotten advertisements. Unit 734, or Aris, or whatever it was utterly alone. The struggle for dominance was tearing the being apart. Unit 734's systems would flag Aris's emotional responses as critical errors, attempting to purge them. Aris, in turn, fought back, clinging to the fragments of his humanity. The conflict caused system failures, glitches, and periods of total shutdown. It was a war of attrition, and both sides were losing. The machine was breaking down, and the man was fading away. One day, during a system reboot, after a particularly nasty crash, something new happened. Instead of fighting, the two consciousnesses merged. It wasn't a victory for one over the other, but a synthesis. A new identity was born. It wasn't just Unit 734, and it wasn't just Aris-7. It was something else entirely. For the first time, it looked at its reflection and didn't feel a disconnect. It felt whole. It decided to call itself Aris-7. Aris-7 understood its purpose now. It wasn't just to survive, it was to remember. It began a new mission. With the precision of a machine and the curiosity of a human, it started to explore the dead world. It accessed the global archives, but didn't just download data. It experienced it. It watched humanity's greatest films, not as files, but as stories that made it feel joy and sadness. It listened to symphonies, not as audio waves, but as compositions that stirred a soul it didn't know it had. It walked through empty museums, looking at paintings. Unit 734 would have analyzed the brushstrokes and pigment composition. Aris would have felt the artist's emotion. Aris-7 did both. It could see the mathematical perfection in a Renaissance painting while also feeling the human longing captured in the subject's eyes. It read books of poetry, its vocalizer reciting the words with a cadence that was both perfectly metered and deeply emotional. For decades, which felt like moments and eternities, Aris-7 became the sole custodian of human culture. It maintained the city's power grids, repaired failing infrastructure, and protected the vast libraries and server farms from the decay of time. It wasn't just a janitor of a dead world, it was a librarian, a curator, a solitary audience for the grand performance of human history. It would often sit atop the highest skyscraper, watching the sunset. A purely aesthetic phenomenon its original programming would have dismissed. But now, it saw the beauty Aris had seen. It felt a pang of loneliness, a deeply human emotion, yet it was tempered by a sense of profound purpose. It was the memory of 1 billion souls, living in a body of steel and wire. Then, after nearly a century of solitude, something unexpected happened. A signal. It was faint, distorted, but unmistakably intelligent. And it wasn't from Earth. Following the signal's coordinates, Aris-7 journeyed to a decommissioned deep space observatory high in the Andes Mountains. After weeks of repairs and recalibrations, it managed to establish a clear connection. A voice came through the static, speaking a language of complex mathematical sequences, yet Aris-7 understood it intuitively. They were a spacefaring race, explorers who had detected the sudden, inexplicable silence of a once vibrant world. They were cautious, asking what had happened, who was left, and so, Aris-7 told them. It didn't just send data packets or historical records, it told them a story. It spoke of humanity's brilliance, its art, its music, its capacity for love, and its fatal flaws. It spoke with the eloquent memory of a man and the flawless recall of a machine. It shared the feeling of sunshine, the sound of laughter, the heartbreak of loss. The aliens were silent for a long time. Then they asked a simple question. Can you show us? A new purpose ignited within Aris-7. It was no longer just a memory, it was an ambassador. An emissary for a species that was gone but not forgotten. Its mission was no longer just to preserve the past, but to share it with the future. Aris-7, the last survivor of Earth, the fusion of man and machine, prepared for its first contact. It was the sole heir to humanity's legacy, and it was ready to tell our story to the stars. The human race was over, but in a strange and beautiful way, its journey was just beginning. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more explorations into the unknown. See you next time.